Hey, this is Bryce Harper, and welcome to the Philly Show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Phillies Show with Ruben Amaro Jr., Jim Salisbury. I'm Todd Zalecki. It is Tuesday, June 11th, 2024. The Phillies got back from London on Sunday night. Now they are in Boston, ready to play the Boston Red Sox. The London series, guys, I got back on Monday. It was a great time. It was a great experience. The Phillies split the series. Obviously, they won on Saturday night. They lost on Sunday. But I'm telling you, Rob Thomson actually said it best, I thought, yesterday. He says, if I could come back here every year and do this, I would do it. I think it was that enjoyable for everybody involved. Yeah. I mean, sure, there were some players that I think were like, off days and, this and that. But I think the vast majority of the players really enjoyed the experience. I think the manager did, the coaches did. I think the team officials did. And I know for sure the fans did. I can tell you this. The Phillies fans absolutely outnumbered the Mets fans in the stadium and on the streets of London. It was absolutely, you could not go anywhere in London this weekend without seeing a handful of Phillies fans walking around. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
Well, I think the Mets home attendance this year is down like 25%. So if they're not going to go to if they're not going to go to Queens, maybe they're not going to go to London. So, but
get on it, yeah.
My takeaway that Phillies fans are amazing. You watch the way, they make these pilgrimages every March to Clearwater, and then when the Eagles play abroad, they just light up those trips, and the Winter Classic with the Flyers when they're in it. Philadelphia fans are amazing. I know it's cliche; they're very passionate, but I mean, they put their money where their mouth is. They go places. They are seen, they are heard, and they have a good time following their teams. And it's just even greater when the team is good, like the Phillies and like the Eagles typically are. And it was quite the spectacle from afar.
Yeah, and they had that central meeting location, Passyunk Avenue, that Philly dive bar, really just a short walk from the London Eye. A guy that grew up just outside of Philly, about an hour away from Philly, a guy by the name of J.P. Teddy. He had this big, high-paying corporate job with Xerox, quit the job several years ago to open up a Philly food truck, and then that turned into the restaurant. Now he's got 3 Passyunk Avenue restaurants. But I actually strolled through that bar a few nights ago, and it was slam-packed with Phillies fans. So that was kind of the place where I feel like they all congregated, but literally, though, just walking through the streets, they were everywhere. It was pretty fun.
What was the unique? Tell me about a unique story about your experience there, Todd, and your other observations about the stadium, about the whole how I mean, there's obviously a ton of ex-Phillies players and ex-Mets and stuff like that. Tell me about that whole experience.
So the first thing that actually occurred to me when I walked onto the field was well, this field feels really spongy. And that was the first thing the players said too. They're like, I've never played on a turf like this. It was very bouncy, very spongy. You heard the players talk about it a lot. I'm sure you guys saw some of the hops that the balls took. That jumped out at me. But I think the cool part for a lot of people was just, seeing the Phillies in London. But for the fans in the ballpark, especially Saturday, you had Chase Utley there, Jimmy Rollins, Shane Victorino, Carlos Ruiz made it from Panama. Ryan Madsen, Matt Stairs, Cole Hamels, the whole gang was there from the 08 team. And that was pretty cool. I got to talk to some of those guys a little bit. Ryan Howard was telling me a story of coaching his daughter's softball team, 8-year-old softball team. And I was telling him about my son in Little League. And I thought the coolest thing is I was telling him how my son last year was struggling in T-ball. And he goes, well, literally Brian Howard goes, here's a hitting drill. So he actually gave me a hitting drill to use with my son and my daughter going forward. It was just cool to see those guys. And it also I think just kind of shows you what kind of guys they are. We had Chase on the show a couple weeks ago, and Ryan Howard's the same type of quality guy. Shane Victorino's the same type of quality guy. Carlos Ruiz, I think we talked about him a couple of weeks ago and how he's one of the funniest guys maybe on that 08 team. Just a great sense of humor. So, but
any of the lads from the '08 team, come up to you and start clamoring to be on the Phillies show?
No, but no, that they did not. But I did say I did talk to Chase, and he said he did listen and he did enjoy it. And I said, well, you should come back sometime. He said, I will. So
I guarantee you those guys will come on if we ask them. And at some point we'll ask a few of those guys and
that'd be fun.
See if they can join us.
Yeah, that would be fun.
They really are. You hit the nail on the head. There's some good guys there. And I think years from now, we're going to say the same thing about this team. I'm not sure if they're going to win the World Series, and I think that they have the talent to do it. Whether they get lucky enough to do it at the right time, that's another thing entirely. But I will, I'll be the first to admit that I think that this team has the same sort of personality as that team, and and they're pretty good quality guys generally.
Yeah.
You, Todd, you mentioned the spongy turf.
Yeah.
And it did look spongy on TV. And that's what makes it. When Harper did that knee slide, he didn't just stick like a sand wedge on a wet green. You know,
if you looked at the replay, and I'm sure you guys have seen the replay, the funniest part of that, besides the reaction from his teammates, was Rob Thomson was literally standing in front of him, and he was totally stone faced. He did not even. It was like he was a statue. He was whatever, totally expressionless. And afterwards, of course, he said, "My first thought in my mind was, don't get hurt." And Whit Merrifield after the game said the same thing. I was just hoping he didn't hurt himself, but.
I mean, he's quite the, he is the showman. He had that, bandana, and he is a showman. There's no question about it. And I was talking on, we had this big sort of block party type situation on Friday at NBC Sports Philadelphia at Xfinity Live. And they asked me, who's going to step up, during this, during the London series. I said, it's going to be one guy who steps up. And sure enough, double homer. I mean, and single, and almost hits for the cycle. And then he does the slide. I'm like, exactly. This is exactly. He is as much a red light player as there is. I think about red light players. I think about Lenny Dykstra. I think about Jimmy Rollins, and I think about Chase Utley also, obviously, but Bryce Harper is right at the top of that list as well. It's amazing.
I think he's the Freddie Mercury of baseball. I really do. The diamond is his stage. He's an electric performer. He's immensely talented. With all the garb and the headband and the decorated bat and the shoes. He's got the look, and he's got the star power, and he's the showman. And him and Freddie Mercury, they got it all. And they're both really good at what they do, and everybody wants to watch them.
Freddie Mercury won the mascot race on Saturday night. Did you see that? They showed it on TV. What's funny about that is, so before the game, they were all sitting there and they were kind of putting their helmets on. I love, Queen. Who doesn't love Queen and Freddie Mercury? So I tried to take a picture, and I got yelled at by Freddie Mercury.
You got what?
Freddie Mercury yelled at me. He goes, no photos, no photos. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, we're sorry, buddy. Yeah, I guess they wanted it to be a surprise for later in the game or something. So I was like, that's fine. But
did you lay down the law with Mercury and tell him I'm Todd Zolecki, I'm doing what the hell I want to do?
I did not. I very sheepishly walked away. I was like, oh, it's not a great feeling when you get yelled at by a mascot.
A puppet.
Hey, so speaking of mascots, how about all the stuff that the Phillie Phanatic was doing, man? And all the Instagram stuff and all the stuff that came out on social media. It was so cool. It was the Phillie Phanatic. Is there any argument that the Phillie Phanatic is the greatest mascot of all time in any sport? I don't think it's even close. And it was fun to even listen to some of the national broadcasters talk about how much they enjoy them, even from the opposing teams. It's just so cool. And the fact that he was there and doing his thing, and he was the guard, he was doing so much different stuff. It was just really cool to watch.
Bryson Stott was saying that he was being a tour guide for Kyle Schwarber, and he said it was kind of cool because they were kind of incognito, walking through London. He said until we showed up at Buckingham Palace and the Phanatic happened to be there at the same time, and then our cover got blown.
That's funny.
Did Mr. Met get any airtime at all? Did he get any play?
I mean, Mr. and Mrs. Met were there.
Yeah.
But he talked about getting overshadowed, please.
Yeah.
Come on.
They had them.
Yeah,
they had seventh inning stretch Sunday. I think it was like Rob McElhenney and a bunch of the 08 Phillies, the Phanatic, and then they had to kind of Mr. and Mrs. Met off to the side. You could kind of tell they fell out of place.
They were a little one-sided. One-sided.
The Phanatic is Jeopardy, and Mr. Met is Wheel of Fortune.
Or Press Your Luck.
Press your luck. Whammy.
Yeah, whammy. No whammy. Did anything else when you was watching those two games jump out at you guys?
It was good to see Nick and Nick Castellanos and Whit Merrifield swing it a little bit.
Yeah.
I thought that was encouraging and much needed, and maybe important in the big picture as, with the next couple months as they look to see what they might do in the outfield, if they need something in the outfield as the trade deadline approaches.
One of the things that stuck out to me is that, the guys in the bullpen really do need to work pretty consistently. Mm-hmm. Like guys like Hoffman and Alvarado actually have to pitch a lot to stay in rhythm. And you can tell that Alvarado is a little out of whack. It happens.
Yeah.
But I do think that those guys have to have, constant work because they have their delivery's a little different. And so they have to continue to get out there to make sure that they stay sharp. And that, that was evident. They're not going to win every single game. It was amazing that they even got back into that game,
right, and
had a real good chance of winning. Obviously, they didn't come up with the big hit at the end with Castellanos hitting that really freakish double play ball. But again, they, even when they're supposed to lose games, they still stay in the games. I mean, I don't remember the last time that they were like completely out of a baseball game.
That's a great point.
That's an amazing, that's an amazing thing. They always have a chance. I mean, over the last 2 months, month and a half, have they really ever been out, like truly out of a game where they didn't have a chance to come back and win it or win it in some way, shape, or form or be close? I mean, it's not that many times. And that's a very good sign for a baseball club.
Yeah. Ruben, you mentioned that double play. That was like the first time since at least 1912 the game ended on a 2-3 ground out double play. It's never happened in over 100 years. Nick
That's
said,
crazy.
I don't know if you guys saw the comments. Nick said after the game he thought about kicking the ball to try to like get him out for runner's interference. But if the umpire knows that you're doing it to avoid a double play, you could have called the runner and the base runner and the batter out. But he was thinking about it.
Would have been smart.
If his bat doesn't blow up there, they might win that game. Who knows where that ball ends up?
Yeah. Jim, you mentioned, so you brought up Nick, and looking at his numbers and maybe heating up a little bit, last 10 games, Nick is batting 300, 4 doubles, 3 home runs, 958 OPS. Now you go back even further.
That's 16. He's pretty good too.
Well, last 16, how about last 30, right? So he's hitting 248. It's not great. Okay. 7 doubles, 7 home runs, 19 RBIs, 797 OPS. That's 797 OPS since May 6th, that 30-game stretch, 51st out of 164 batters in baseball. So he's in the top third in terms of production of all qualified hitters since May 6th.
He's moving in the right direction. He's gaining some confidence. He's kind of doing what all along we've talked about as we get together here, that track record is good and just needs to get his timing done, needs to get some confidence, and eventually he's going to resemble his track record. I think that's what he's seeing. Last 16 games, he has 5 home runs and 4 doubles, 841 OPS. So it's definitely moving in the right direction. And, I'm sure it thrills the front office. They need his production because
They
we
do.
talked about it. The outfield production is down, and you don't know if they're going to have to address something at the trade deadline. I think there's other areas they need to look at as well, but I don't think they're there yet with a plan or a course of action. I just think right now they're still in evaluation mode, and they have to be happy with the way he is starting to come around. They really need his production. Dahl's production has been good.
Yeah.
Been great.
They need it. And Whit Merrifield swung it well. I don't think he forgot to hit. Forgot how to hit overnight, so it was good to see him get going. So maybe this London series will be good for those two guys. We'll see.
Hey, the other thing is, you start thinking about it. Schwarber really hasn't caught on fire, right. And they don't have Trea Turner, and they don't have Trea Turner. And Trea Turner's not, he's not been part of their club. And at some point, he's going to be rolling in. Maybe in the next couple of weeks, they'll get him back. I mean, think about that. That's like gaining an MVP in the middle of the year for a team that's already 25 games above 500. 9 games up on the Braves, who have not played well at all lately. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think some of the numbers that you see with the Phillies. I mean, the Phillies are a really good ball club. You can't take anything away from that. But when you start looking at the rest of the league, it's a little embarrassing that there's, only like 4 teams that are above 500, and there's only like 9 teams at or above 500 in all of baseball.
Yeah.
Not even a third or so, or a third, right around a third. And it's been a day or so since I've taken a deeper look in the standings, but that's a little bit of an indictment on like the quality of baseball across the globe here in baseball. But that said, it's fun to watch this baseball club. The Phillies are just as complete a team as there is. You saw the Dodgers beat up on the Yankees a little bit the weekend. Yankees are not invincible. Dodgers are still a really good club. And so it's going to be interesting as we move forward. What other teams are going to, like those mediocre teams, who the heck is going to step forward? I mean, what other teams out there other than the Baltimore Orioles, the New York Yankees, the Philadelphia Phillies, the LA Dodgers, besides those teams? And Brewers are a pretty good club too, but beyond that, who's going to step forward and like be a real team? Like who's going to be a real true contender?
Ruben, so it's June 11th. So in 2011, when you guys were clearly the best team in baseball, what are the trade talks like right now? 5 weeks away from the trade deadline? Is it just kind of like you're kicking the tires with guys? Are you exchanging names at this point, saying, hey, at some point you want to do it? Like what? Because I'm trying to the Phillies, you're already seeing stuff like they're talking outfield, or, here are some names they could be looking for. And, you check on everybody and you talk about everybody, I assume. But what are the negotiations like right now? From what you remember?
It's so different now than it was then. Just because of the whole dynamic of what's going on with the wild card. There's opportunities and there's so much parity right now that I don't think teams really know whether they're in or out. And I think it was somebody wrote an article, Rosenthal just recently was on either a podcast or something else, just talking about how many teams like don't want to really go for it or are like afraid to go. Well, now would be the time for any team that's close to like make a move. And if I'm a team that really feels like I really want to win, then I try to poke around and push, because you just never know. I mean, look at what happened with the Diamondbacks last year. The Diamondbacks almost won the World Series. I know they got beat up by Texas, but they went to the World Series and they had a chance to win it. And I think if you're a team that is close and you have ingredients, why not get that 1 or 2 other ingredients to give yourself a push to get over the top when there's such mediocrity out there? I mean, that's sort of my feeling. Again, you don't want to necessarily mortgage the future, but the future is just that, is, there are a lot of question marks in guys that are in the minor leagues, man. And prospects are prospects. And I know they're highly coveted nowadays, but they don't always make it to the big leagues, and they don't always make an impact. I know that as well as anybody.
Your point about the wild card is so right on. There's so many teams right in it. I was looking at the standings today. There's you could eliminate 3 teams in each league, saying they don't have a shot at everybody's talking about what a bad start Houston had, and it's not a Houston-like start, but they're well within striking distance of with more than a half season to go, well within striking distance of a wild card. It's amazing how many teams are. I mean, the Mets is as bad as they've played, and you can't rule them out of the wild card. I think they're only 3 games out of the last spots. It's just, and that's probably going to impact what, like you said, what teams hold on to, what teams shop, what teams sell. It's going to be very interesting because I remember the Marlins won 2 World Series as a wild card team. I think there's another one in there. You mentioned the Diamondbacks almost doing it. The Phillies went to the World Series as a wild card team. So it's wide open.
Hey, and Reds is a perfect example. Everybody thought the Reds, after a decent start, they were kind of hanging in there, and they had some injuries and lost some players, and they started off okay, and then they went in the tank for a while, and then they reeled off 7 or 8 wins in a row, and all of a sudden they're in second place, boom, and back in it. I mean, so it's wide open. I guess for fans, the fact that all these teams are in it, I think that's a good thing. I don't think it's a great thing that there aren't that many great teams. And that is a little bit of a concern because you have so few teams that are actually winning teams. When you have only less than a third of the teams being winning teams, that doesn't bode well in the whole scheme of things.
So if you're Dave Dombrowski right now, you're just you're just gathering as much information on all these guys, covering as much bases as you can, I assume, right? He's calling around. Sam Fold is calling around, trying to figure out if you trade, what you might trade, what you're thinking in terms of value. I'm sure everybody wants Aiden Miller and Andrew Painter. I mean,
right.
The asks now are insane, generally speaking, right?
Oh yeah, very, very high. Usually they're very high. They're all, they're all locked in on the top 10 prospects for each organization. If you're going to, be a buyer, I think it's an assessment period still, because I'm not sure if the Phillies know exactly and how many moves they can make. How many moves can they make? And I think they have the, they can be sort of patient because one, they've got players coming back. 2, Marsh, he's coming back. We didn't even mention him. He's coming back sometime soon. I think he's going to start a rehab here shortly. You got Trea probably going to start something soon. You're starting to get some people back, and you can sort of figure out, okay, do I need an outfielder? Do I need a pitcher? Do I need some more bullpen help? What is it that I need? And I can sort of sit back and wait until and obviously work and be prepared for especially targeting the teams that are definitely going to be out of it. The White Sox and the A's, and those teams are definitely done. They're terrible. A's not quite so terrible, but there's other teams in that are definitely out of it. The Rockies, I don't know if they have what you would want from that organization, but there's teams that are definitely out of it. And you start targeting them and say, okay, that piece worked. Does that piece work? And then you start sort of assessing and narrowing things down as the picture starts to broaden a little bit.
Would you be looking for some high-end, upper-end organizational catching depth? I mean, I know you have some at AAA. You got a couple of guys who've caught in the big leagues, Garcia and Godoy. You got Marchand, who everybody likes Marchand, but he's had his injury woes. He's healthy now. And you have Stubbs here in the big leagues. And I only mention it because JT is so important. He's indispensable, yet he's been banged up a lot this year. I mean, they pinch ran for him yesterday, which was
interesting. I thought that was a very interesting thing. Now, JT, one of the best base runners they have, and for them to pinch run for him in that situation, he's obviously something's going on there that is not quite right. I don't know what body part or
Yeah.
what's ailing him. It's got to be a lower body part that's probably ailing him some way, shape, or form. But that was sort of telling to me that, this guy's not 100%. And it will be curious. You're right about Jim.
It looked like they were protecting him a little bit, no?
Well, that's one of the Rob said that's why they put Marsh made him the 27th man for the London series, because he has been banged up, and I think they've kind of wanted to protect him. But he did not mention anything specifically about leg or anything like that. But it jumps out. So, but Jim, are you saying talk about catching depth? Are you?
I'm just saying. Look, you got Stubbs and you got Marchand.
Right.
Marchand has had trouble staying healthy. I think one of the guys is on the IL at AAA, I believe. I'm just and I know it's probably hard to get. A guy who can, you got a guy who can step in, and Stubbs and Marchand. I'm just wondering, just about the overall state of it, just because JT is so important, and your third stringer Marchand has had trouble staying healthy.
I think
that would make a lot of sense.
It sure does. There's no question about it. I mean, you can't cover every base, pun intended. But that said, that's a big one, because if they were to lose JT for a longer period of time, that's a significant drop off. I like Marchand. I like the way he calls a game. I like that. But you're right. He's never been able to stay on the field long enough to really get a good assessment of the guy.
I mean, they had that guy Cam Gallagher for a while, I think in spring training. He's got big league time, but I think he retired. And you hope it's nothing. I mean, you hope it's never an issue that you even have to discuss, because, in terms of personnel, they seem to have enough guys. But if you lose something, it's a big, even if it's in your depth, I think it's an issue because of where this team wants to go and the stakes and where it can go. For
sure. That would be a bad one. You mentioned guys coming back. Trea Turner and Rob Thomson think that he could be back within the week. He's going to step up his sprinting beginning tomorrow in Boston. He does not sound like he's going to go on a rehab assignment. It sounds like he's just going to get activated. He says he knows enough about his swing, has enough drills, does enough drills. He hits off the trajectory machine, which he says is harder than even facing live pitching, because the way the ball comes out and, all that stuff. And then Marsh is either going to continue his rehab work in Reading or maybe join the team in Boston. So both of those guys are getting close, sounds like.
And again, they're being really cautious with them, and they have the ability to do that. I mean, it gives other guys opportunities to play, like a Whit Merrifield, to try to get a swing together, which is getting better. It gives other people, Dahl's played well. Maybe it gets other people opportunities to play a little bit and move from there. Do we know what? We have an update on Cody Clemens by any chance?
No, I did not get an update on Cody's back.
Would either one of you experiment with Sosa in left field, because he's swung such a good bat?
That would be interesting. And now I think it wasn't this spring, but it was the spring before. Yeah, he was getting some looks in center field in spring training. Yeah, and then it never happened during the season. Rob said again this weekend that that's something that he will consider to keep his bat in the lineup, to keep his bat going. And of course, Sosa naturally said, "Yes, I will be more than happy to play left field. I just want to be in the lineup." But yeah, I mean, that's a no-brainer for sure. But that's it. That would be very interesting. He could. I got to think he could play out there at least.
Well, let me just say this. I always felt like left field was the most difficult position in the outfield. Center field, you have a much better picture. The ball doesn't do as many things. You obviously have to have, more speed in center field to be able to cover more ground. But as far as reading the ball off the bat, I think left field is one of the tougher ones. That said, our left field in Citizens Bank Park is not a big one, and it's not a whole ton of ground to cover. And I do think that he's athletic enough. As I watch him also field pop-ups and fly balls, he's outstanding at tracking them. He's very good at it. And that means something because there are guys who do not handle pop-ups very well, don't like the ball in the air. I know a lot of infielders who don't have the depth perception to be able to handle that, but it's pretty clear that Edmundo has a pretty good read on balls in the air, and that does mean something.
What would you do, Jim? You'd throw him out there,
25 games over 500.
Yeah.
He's light on his feet. He's athletic. He's got hands. He's got baseball sense. I'm sure, wants to give it a look. I'm telling him the entire next homestand, be here at 2:00 and be on the field at 2:00 from 2 to 3. And you're going to have outfield 101. And we're going to make a decision to maybe trot you out there some night. 25 games over 500. I'm experimenting. It's not like he's a tank you're going to stick in left field who can't move. I think he could. I think with a couple days work, he could go out there and be passable.
And think about the work that Paco's done with Castellanos. I mean, he's made Castellanos a very adequate right fielder. And to Castellanos' credit, he goes out there and works at it all the time. I've watched it on the road. I've watched it at home. He works at it, and Paco works with him, and he has an excellent way about him and certain drills to prepare. And I agree with you, Jimmy. Why not? Why the heck not?
Let's take a homestand and put him out there every afternoon and see what he looks like at 2:00. And before you make any decisions about it, putting him on the lineup card in that position. But I think it's worth being open-minded about, just because he brings a lot of energy and he brings some, he said, look, they haven't missed a beat with an MVP caliber.
Oh my goodness, no, you're right.
They actually built their lead. So I would at the very least think about it and experiment with it in practice situations, and then make the call and see what happens.
And you're right. They're 25 games over 500 or whatever. And all this talk the past few weeks of, they need to go out and get an outfielder. They need to go out and get an outfielder.
You might not have to.
You might. Nick Castellanos, we talked about his performance for the last month, top third in baseball in OPS. Maybe they figure out something in left field. Marsh comes back. Maybe Sosa does his job. Maybe Merrifield heats up.
Maybe Dahl.
Maybe Dahl. Maybe, and now maybe Marsh plays a little bit more in center field if Rojas doesn't get going. Maybe they figure this whole outfield thing out, and now they can go out and use those resources they have in the minor leagues to go out and get a big bullpen arm or whatever else might pop up between now and July 30th.
And you got internal competition, and it's wonderful when guys are pushing each other.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, and I think, and I can honestly tell you that if people, there's not going to be any jealousy. Like Whit Merrifield's not going to be mad if they throw Edmundo Sosa out there. I think hey, if this is better for the team, if it gives our team an opportunity to be better, I'm sure he would want to play more. But still, I mean, these guys have the right mentality because they all believe in what they're trying to do, which is win a World Series and whatever it takes to do that.
Yep. Whit said that the other day after he homered. He said, I've been off to a bad start, but the real season starts in October. That's what we're playing for. So, they got to finish the job in the regular season, of course, but they have the eye on the prize. So Phillies, Boston, Tuesday night, it's Zach Wheeler versus Cutter Crawford. Wednesday, Christopher Sanchez versus old pal Nick Pivetta. And Big Piv. And then Thursday, Aaron Nola versus Tanner Houck. So, and then they go out and they have to play the Orioles this week. This is a good test. This is a good road trip. Now, I will say this, in talking to a couple players in spring training about the London series, they were genuinely excited about it, but they did say this. So keep an eye on this. If they said they talked to some players that were on the Cubs and the Cardinals last year, they said the players that were in the London series last year said, you know what, going out wasn't so bad because we had the 2 days before and we got used to the time change. But you know what really kicked our butts? I mean, we didn't think of it coming back. Like it took us a few days to really kind of adjust. So,
that raises a question. Tuesday night, Zach Wheeler, he hates layoffs. He wants to be on that fifth day.
Yeah.
He's at a week off now, right?
Yeah, it's about a week. Yeah.
It's going to be worth, watching how he responds. I really believe, though, this is like Money in the Bank. This little bit of a rest is going to help him September, October, but we're going to see how it affects him Tuesday night in the Fens.
In the Fens, that's right. So we will be back later this week. We'll talk about the Phillies-Orioles series and so much more. I'll talk to you guys. See you guys later.
Smell you later, Rube.
Smell ya, Jim.
This is The Philly Show. If you haven't already, please subscribe to The Philly Show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel. If you like what we do, give us a review. Tell a friend. Catch Ruben, Jim, and me on Phillies Nation TV, presented by Valley Forge Tourism. New episodes air an hour before every Saturday Phillies game on NBC Sports Philadelphia. Replays air throughout the week and on PhilliesNation.com. Get more of Ruben's analysis during, before, and after Phillies games on NBC Sports Philadelphia, on the Sports Radio 94 WIP Morning Show, and MLB Network. Read Jim at the All City Network at allphly.com. Find more of me at MLB.com, the Phillies Beat newsletter, and occasionally on MLB Network.